If he was so hot, why wasn't he part of Sky Patrol? Hello everyone, I'm Kevin, otherwise known as Forum BX257, here to bring you another 1980s and 90s G.I. Joe tour review. And today I'll be taking a look at a G.I. Joe Paratrooper, the 1990 Freefall. Unfortunately, Freefall doesn't make any comic book appearances, at least not in the old Marvel comic run of G.I. Joe, but he makes his first cartoon appearance in a 1990 DiC animated television episode titled The Revenge of the Pharaoh. First, let's take a look at Freefall's accessories, starting with his weapon. It's a very interesting and unique looking assault rifle. It's very skinny. I don't believe it's based on any real world assault rifle though. Unfortunately, the contents list on the card doesn't really call it anything, other than assault rifle, of course. It's very interesting because this is clearly an ammo clip here, but I'm not sure what this thing is here. It could either be a vertical handhold or another ammo clip, because there's this protrusion underneath the barrel, which is also very skinny. Now, according to the artwork, it looks very much like a barrel. So I'm guessing that might be a shotgun underslung the assault rifle. That's a very interesting thing for a paratrooper. Next, he comes with your standard G.I. Joe hose. That's only about 3 inches in length. He also comes with an oxygen mask, which curiously the contents list on the card calls a gas mask, but really that's an oxygen mask, which is connected to the helmet. So very tiny piece, actually. The artwork doesn't quite do that little gas mask justice because they haven't hooked it up, and it's only covering his chin, like a chin strap, where it should be covering his nose and mouth. Next, he comes with a removable helmet with some very interesting detail around the visor. It's unfortunately not picked out in paint, though. And finally, he comes with a backpack, which is what the hose was attached to. And it looks like it has air canister details on both sides, but you'll notice that the peg is only on one side. Although it looks like one is on this side and just broken off, it actually isn't. They're all like this. So you can only attach the hose to the one side there. When this guy came out in 1990, a lot of other figures in the basic lineup had a ton of accessories. Except for Freefall here. He only comes with a backpack, a helmet, and an assault rifle. But to me, that's probably why a lot of people really like him, because with those things on him, and of course his camouflage, he exemplifies the classic toy soldier. And I really like him too. But on top of that, it's also very curious about his color scheme. Now, he doesn't really have a lot of pops of color like you often see when a figure has like a lot of dull earth tones. They usually put like a little pop of red for like a, like a shoulder flash or a badge or something like that. But he really doesn't have anything like that, especially with his helmet covering up his blonde hair. He really does look like a generic army builder. But that's really cool. His colors, however, are very interesting. I don't know if this is coming out on the video or not, but the base color for his jumpsuit here is sort of an orangey brown. And the green is sort of a swampy green, which really reminds me of European theater autumn camouflage. A very interesting choice for this figure. I'm not sure if that was intentional or what, but really that just sort of reminds me of the type of thing that a German army or Belgian army would kind of wear. Again, he's not supposed to be an international figure. He's supposed to be American, so I'm not quite sure where he's supposed to be jumping into wearing this type of camouflage, but you know, whatever. He also has a very, very interesting thing here. He has a chest holster here meant for a left-hand draw, but his parachute C-clip, I'm not really sure what you call that, a pin, is on the left side as well, where if he's left-handed, it should have been on the other side, because I'm pretty sure where you put the parachute pin is adjustable, but whatever. He also has a lot of this gray. I would say that the texture is almost supposed to be like nylon straps, which is really cool. It's all over him. It's nice that it's painted on the back, because sometimes Hasbro cheaps out and doesn't paint the stuff on the back just to save a bit of cost, but it's there, and that's really nice. He also has the boots with what looks like sort of a nylon mesh on the front, kind of like a shin protector or something like that. I mention that especially because it's rather unfortunate, as I already mentioned, that that's sort of detail which is this is actually carried over onto his helmet, but is not painted in. If anything, that should have been painted in right there, in that same gray paint. Of course, it also carries over onto his backpack, that nylon straps. Of course, the whole backpack is gray, so it doesn't really matter for this. Is it just me, or does he remind you of Scott Bakula, with his sort of receding hairline and thick, very dark eyebrows? Freefall here is in good company as he takes over for the 1984 Ripcord, who was the G.I. Joe team's Halo Trooper. Basically a high-altitude, low-opening paratrooper, the elite of the skydivers, if you will. So all Halo Troopers are paratroopers, but not all paratroopers are Halo Troopers. So would you consider Freefall a Halo Trooper as well? Well, I don't know. He seems more closer to the 1983 Airborne figure, who is more of an airborne infantryman. So he doesn't really need an oxygen mask because he's not skydiving from quite that height. Now, I know I've made fun of Freefall here by comparing him to the 1990 Sky Patrol figures, who were an entire sub-team of paratroopers, which came with real working parachutes. The fact of the matter is that I'm not really sure what Hasbro was thinking of making a figure, a paratrooper figure, in the basic lineup when you're trying to sell these slightly more expensive guys here in their own sub-team. I mean, if you want a paratrooper, you're going to have to shell out a bit more, but at least you get the gimmick of having a real working parachute. Here, you have a guy with no gimmicks at all, and he doesn't even have as many interesting accessories as the rest of his 1990 basic lineup figures. I don't really know if that was the point. I mean, these guys were maybe like $1 or $1.50 more than the basic lineup. I'm not sure if that was really that much more back in 1990 currency. I guess you would have to think about that yourself, but honestly, it's just very interesting that you have a figure with pretty much no gimmicks at all, but he's a paratrooper and your choice for a cheaper version of a Sky Patrol figure. So just who would the opposite number for Freefall be on the Cobra or bad guy side? Well, it's actually very hard to say because Cobra does not actually have a paratrooper. I always found that kind of odd. I mean, I didn't miss it at first, of course, but when you're looking for it, it is kind of strange that you don't have a paratrooper for the bad guys. So here we have the 1985 Snow Serpent, one of my all-time favorite figures, and he comes with a parachute pack just to get into and out of the Arctic areas that he's assaulting, of course. Then we have another figure with a parachute. Of course, he's a fighter pilot, the 1986 AVAC. But neither of them really focus on being paratroopers. The figures are also quite old as well, considering this figure came out in 1990 and the latest figure came out in 1986. So I actually have to compare him to the Iron Grenadiers Targat from 1989. That's a close enough year. While a lot of people do treat this thing on his back like a rocket pack, it's actually supposed to slow his descent from skydiving out of orbit. So while he's high-tech and doesn't actually have a parachute as such, his method of getting into the battle zone is very close to being a paratrooper. So I'd say that this guy is in fact the closest we get to a rival to Freefall. If you're looking for a Freefall on the aftermarket, he's actually a fairly easy figure to find, complete with all of his parts, because as you can see, he doesn't come with many of them. Well, the only thing that I would look out for is his oxygen mask, because it's a really small piece, and really nothing more. It's not really a rare piece to find, because you can actually find this piece on its own fairly easily. It's just sometimes you can't find it with the figure. So if you're piecing a figure together, I would suggest trying to find one with the oxygen mask. Now, he doesn't really go for a lot on the aftermarket, but he's not really on the bottom of the list either. The 1990 line of figures really had kind of a range of really interesting figures and really odd-looking figures as well. Like the 1990 Metalhead, who is a missile man who's really specced out and has some unfortunately breakable parts, making him fairly rare to find on the aftermarket complete. But then you also have like guys who are kind of on the bottom of most collectors' lists, like the 1990 Captain Gridiron, who was a football-themed officer for some strange reason. This guy is just sort of average because he's a very displayable figure, but he's not really someone you would put on the forefront either. He's just your classic modern airborne infantryman, and there's nothing wrong with that. Quite frankly, I think not only does he look pretty good just, being displayed on his own, but he actually looks fairly good if you also have some 1990 vehicles, like the 1990 Hammer, which was a gray and light brown land vehicle. So he looks great in that because of his color scheme, kind of complements that. But he also looks fairly good in the 1990 Retaliator helicopter, which was a sort of a greeny-brown helicopter. And with his helmet and oxygen mask, he looks like a great co-pilot as well. Skydivers with a paratrooper was the point of putting a sky doesn't come with a lot, and it's very Well, that's all the time I have right now. Please check out my Facebook page for more information and behind the scenes photos for these reviews. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for next time to see another 1980s G.I. Joe toy review. See you then.